My name is Marcus, and I'm 21 years old. I live in South London in a small flat with my mum and my younger sister, Chloe. Most mornings, the sun isn't even thinking about rising when my alarm screams at me. It's still dark, the air outside smelling of damp pavements and exhaust fumes from the early buses. I drag myself out of bed, careful not to wake my mum in the next room or Chloe, who sleeps on a pull-out sofa in the living area. The floorboards creak like an old ship, and I try to move like a ghost, tiptoeing to the tiny kitchen for a quick glass of water before heading out. My job is at a massive warehouse on the outskirts of the city. I'm a packer and loader. It's hard, physical work, lifting heavy boxes, stacking pallets, rushing to meet delivery deadlines. My back aches by lunchtime, and my hands are always a bit rough and calloused, no matter how much cream I use. The pay isn't great, but it's steady, and it's the only thing keeping a roof over our heads since my mum's cleaning hours got cut way back. She's not been well lately, always tired, and I see the worry lines deepening around her eyes. She tries to hide it, but I always know. My dream, a quiet one I keep mostly to myself, is to study something practical like engineering. I love figuring out how things work, building things with my hands. I used to spend hours sketching designs in an old notebook, imagining a future where I wasn't just moving boxes but creating something. But those dreams feel miles away, buried under mountains of bills and the constant worry about rent, food, and Chloe's school supplies. Chloe, she's 12 and bright as a button, loves reading and wants to be a writer. She deserves a better start than this, a life without constant financial pressure. That's what really keeps me going, the thought of giving them both some peace. The quiet struggle I faced every single day was the crushing weight of responsibility. I felt like the man of the house, even though I was barely out of my teens. Every time a bill landed on the doormat, my stomach would clench. Every time my mum sighed tiredly, or Chloe asked for a new book I knew we couldn't afford, a cold knot of dread would tighten in my chest. It felt like I was constantly treading water, just barely keeping us from sinking. My internal nemesis wasn't some external force, but the gnawing doubt that I wasn't strong enough, that I was failing my family. What kind of son, what kind of brother couldn't even keep a roof over their heads? That fear, that dark whisper of inadequacy was always there, lurking at the edges of my thoughts. Then came the letter. It wasn't even a proper letter, just a typed notice slipped under our door announcing that the building was being sold. New owners, new plans. We had 6 weeks. 6 weeks to find a new place, come up with first and last month's rent plus a security deposit. It was a sum so enormous it made my head spin, a figure I knew was impossible for us to gather. My mum burst into tears when she read it, her hands trembling. Chloe, sensing the gravity of the situation, just looked from one of us to the other, her bright eyes clouded with confusion and fear. 6 weeks. It felt like 6 days. I sprang into action, fueled by a mixture of panic and desperate hope. I took every extra shift offered at the warehouse, sometimes working until midnight, then catching a few hours of sleep before starting all over again. My supervisor, a gruff but fair man named Gary, raised an eyebrow but approved the overtime. My body screamed in protest, but I pushed through the exhaustion, telling myself every box lifted, every pallet stacked, was one step closer to that impossible deposit. On my days off, I wasn't resting. I plastered notices for odd jobs in local shops, offering to do anything: gardening, painting, cleaning. I signed up for a food delivery application, working evenings after my warehouse shift, zipping around London on a battered old bicycle, rain or shine, delivering hot meals. My legs burned, my lungs ached, but I kept picturing Chloe's worried face, my mum's tear-streaked cheeks. The setbacks came fast and hard like punches to the gut. The money from the food delivery was barely enough to cover the extra bike maintenance and a few cheap meals for myself. One week, a nasty cold knocked me out for 3 days, forcing me to miss valuable shifts at the warehouse and losing crucial wages. That put us back hundreds of pounds. Then my mum's old boiler finally gave up the ghost, needing an expensive repair that ate into what little savings we had managed to scrape together for the move. Every time I thought we were inching forward, something would drag us back. I spent hours online looking at flats, calling landlords. Most places were too expensive, too far from Chloe's school, or required references and credit checks that we simply didn't have. I went to viewings, standing awkwardly as landlords looked at my work clothes, heard my story, and then politely told me they'd be in touch, a phrase I quickly learned meant no. The deadline for our current flat loomed larger and larger, a giant, terrifying wall. The internal nemesis, that voice of doubt, grew louder. "You're failing, Marcus. You can't do this. They're going to be homeless because of you." It felt like drowning, constantly struggling to surface for air. Just when I thought all hope was lost, I found it. A tiny flat, a bit further out than we wanted, in a slightly run-down block, but it was available. The landlord, an older woman who seemed a bit less strict than the others, quoted a price that, with every single penny I could earn, we might just be able to afford. She needed the full security deposit and first month's rent up front in 1 week. It was still an astronomical sum, but it felt like a tiny flicker of light in the darkness. I promised her I'd have the money. I worked 3 back-to-back shifts at the warehouse, barely sleeping, running on stale coffee and adrenaline. My body felt like lead, but my mind was fixed on that new flat, that promise of a home. I sold my old gaming console, a cherished possession, and even my decent pair of trainers. Every single penny went into an old envelope I kept hidden under my mattress. By Friday afternoon, I had almost everything. I was just 200 pounds short. 200 pounds, a small amount in the grand scheme of things, but an insurmountable mountain to me. I had one more delivery shift to do, and with a bit of luck, I might just make it. I clutched the envelope, thick with almost all our savings, close to my chest as I cycled through the busy streets. The rain had started, a cold, miserable London drizzle turning the pavement slick. I was rushing, trying to get to my next drop-off when it happened. I hit a puddle, the bike skidded, and I went sprawling. Not a serious fall, just a nasty scrape on my knee and elbow. But as I scrambled to my feet, gathering my delivery bag, I felt a terrible lightness. My old, worn backpack, which had been slung over my shoulder, had burst at the seam. My wallet, containing not just my identification, but that thick envelope of cash, was gone. Panic surged through me, cold and immediate. I dropped the delivery bag and frantically searched the wet pavement, my heart hammering against my ribs. I got down on my hands and knees, peering into the grates, pushing aside fallen leaves. Nothing. The street was bustling with people hurrying out of the rain, their faces a blur. No one seemed to notice me, a frantic young man tearing apart the pavement. I searched for what felt like an hour, growing more desperate with each passing minute until my hands were numb and my clothes soaked. It was gone. All of it, the deposit, the first month's rent, all my hard work, all our hopes, vanished into the London street. I stumbled to a nearby bus stop, collapsing onto the cold, wet bench, my head in my hands. The rain fell, mingling with the hot tears that streamed down my face. We were going to be homeless. I had failed. There was no way out this time. I sat on that bus stop bench for a long time, watching the blurred tail lights of cars pass by, the city indifferent to my despair. My phone was dead, soaked from the rain. I had nowhere to go, nothing left to do. The landlord would call tomorrow, and I wouldn't have the money. My mum and Chloe, what would happen to them? The shame was a physical ache in my chest. I lifted my head, my eyes blurry, and through the rain-streaked window of a small corner shop across the street, I saw a warm glow. It was Mr. Khan's shop, a little oasis of sweets, newspapers, and everyday essentials. I'd popped in there a few times for a cheap energy drink after a long shift. He was always behind the counter, a kind-faced man with a gentle smile. I stood up, numbly crossing the street, driven by some instinct to just be in a warm, dry place for a moment. I didn't even know what I would buy, perhaps just a bottle of water. I pushed open the door, the bell tinkling softly, and the scent of spices and old wood filled the air. Mr. Khan looked up from behind the counter. His smile faltered as he saw me. My clothes were soaked, my face was streaked with dirt and tears, and I must have looked like a ghost. "Marcus," he asked, his voice soft, full of genuine concern. "What has happened, son? You look like you've seen a ghost." Usually I'm a private person, but in that moment all my carefully built walls crumbled. The dam burst. I leaned against the counter, my voice thick with unshed tears, and just started talking. I told him everything, about the eviction notice, my mum, Chloe, the endless shifts, finding the flat, the lost wallet, the missing deposit, the crushing certainty that I had failed. I didn't hold anything back, the words tumbling out in a broken rush. Mr. Khan listened patiently, his gaze unwavering, never interrupting. When I finally finished, my voice hoarse, he didn't offer pity. He simply reached across the counter and gently placed a hand on my arm. His grip was firm, reassuring. "Marcus," he said, his voice calm. "I have seen you, boy. I have seen you work day and night. I have seen your mum, a good woman, always trying her best. I have seen your sister, a bright spark. You are not a failure. Life, it throws stones sometimes, big stones. But you are a strong tree. You bend, but you do not break." He paused, then continued, his eyes twinkling a little. "A long time ago, when I first came to this country, I had nothing. No family, no money, no home. I was just like you, standing at a crossroads, ready to give up. And then a kind man, a complete stranger, saw me. He didn't give me money, not directly. He connected me with a community trust, a place that helped people like us get on their feet. He told me, sometimes, Marcus, when you are at the finish line and you have run your absolute hardest, you just need someone to lend you their last sprint." He smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile. "And today, Marcus, I am that sprint for you." He then did something truly astonishing. He didn't just give me advice. He reached under his counter and pulled out an old, worn ledger and a small, secured box. He quickly counted out a thick wad of notes. It was exactly 200 pounds. "This is a loan, Marcus," he said, pushing the money across the counter to me. "Not from me, not truly. This is from that community trust. I am a representative for them. Sometimes, when a situation is urgent, they empower people like me to help immediately. You can pay it back when you are able through the trust with no interest. Go make the call now. Secure your home. We will sort out the paperwork later." I stared at the money, then at Mr. Khan, speechless. Tears welled up again, but these were different tears, hot tears of relief and overwhelming gratitude. It was real. A stranger, a man who barely knew me, had seen my struggle and reached out a hand. It was the single most incredible act of kindness I had ever experienced. I left Mr. Khan's shop that night with the 200 pounds clutched tight in my hand, my heart soaring with a hope I hadn't felt in weeks. I found a public phone box that still worked, called the landlord, and confirmed the deposit would be paid first thing in the morning. She sounded relieved. The next day, we secured the flat. It was small, in a block that was a little older, but it was ours. It was a home. Moving was a scramble, but we did it with help from some of my workmates. My mum, seeing the new key in her hand, burst into tears of happiness. Chloe danced around the empty rooms, planning where her books would go. That little flat, made possible by an act of unexpected kindness, felt like a palace. Life didn't become instantly easy, but it became possible. The crushing weight of homelessness was gone. I continued working at the warehouse, but with a renewed sense of purpose. I started setting aside a small amount each week to pay back the community trust, as Mr. Khan had arranged. More importantly, I started saving for my engineering course. It would take time, but now I believed it was truly possible. Mr. Khan's kindness didn't just save us, it changed me. It opened my eyes to the profound power of human connection, of seeing someone else's struggle and choosing to act. I didn't want to just receive, I wanted to pay it forward. Once we were settled and I had a bit more breathing room, I started volunteering at a local youth center. I mentored kids from challenging backgrounds, sharing my story not to boast, but to show them that even when things feel impossible, hope can arrive in the most unexpected ways. I helped them with their schoolwork, listened to their worries, and encouraged them to never give up on their own quiet dreams. I even taught a few basic engineering concepts, seeing their eyes light up with curiosity. Years passed. I worked hard, completed my engineering course part-time, and eventually secured a good job designing energy-efficient systems for new buildings across London. I still visited Mr. Khan's shop regularly. He'd watch me grow from a desperate young man into a confident professional, his gentle smile never fading. I always made sure to quietly contribute to the community trust he represented, much more than the original 200 pounds. One cold, rainy afternoon, I was walking past Mr. Khan's shop on my way home. The bell tinkled as I pushed open the door, a familiar comfort. But this time, something caught my eye. A young woman, maybe 18 or 19, was standing by the counter. Her clothes were threadbare, her shoulders hunched. She was trying to buy a small packet of biscuits, but she only had a few coins. Her face was etched with a familiar despair, a look I knew all too well. Mr. Khan was speaking to her gently, his hand resting on her arm, just as he had done with me all those years ago. He was telling her about the community trust. He was lending her his last sprint. Without a word, I walked over to the counter, pulled out my wallet, and discreetly placed a generous amount of money on the counter, pushing it towards Mr. Khan. He caught my eye, a knowing smile passing between us. The young woman, tears welling in her eyes, didn't even notice. She was too lost in the sudden, miraculous hope that had just been offered to her. In that moment, I understood. The finish line for one person is often the starting line for another, and sometimes the greatest strength lies in reaching out, even to a stranger, and just offering that last, vital push. The kindness had not ended with me. It had merely found a new path to follow, forever rippling through the heart of this big, beautiful, bustling city.